Oops, wrong button. Nope, not that button. There we go. All right, ladies, we're carrying on in our 12 traditions. We are on tradition 9. First, we will read the short form from page 562 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition. And it goes like this. AA, as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. And long form, which is going to be found on page 565. Each AA group needs the least possible organization. Rotating leadership is the best. The small group may elect its secretary, the large group its rotating committee, and the groups of a large metropolitan area their central or intergroup committee, which often employs a full-time secretary. The trustees of the General Service Board are, in effect, our AA General Service Committee. They are the custodians of our AA tradition and the receivers of voluntary AA. The receivers of voluntary AA contributions by which we maintain our AA General Service Office at New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle our overall public relations, and they guarantee the integrity of our principal newspaper, the AA Grapevine. All such representatives are to be guided in the spirit of service, for true leaders in AA are but trusted and experienced servants of the whole. They derive no real authority from their titles. They do not govern. Universal respect is the key to their usefulness. Sorry guys, Summer's just finished school and is blowing up my phone. All right, now we'll read from the 12 Traditions Illustrated Pamphlet. Sorry. Tradition 9. The words, "Let's keep it simple," were the last Bill W. heard from his fellow founder of AA shortly before Dr. Bob's death in 1950. Aware that it means our recovery program, Bill later wrote, "We need to distinguish sharply between spiritual simplicity and functional simplicity. When we get into questions of action by groups, by areas, and by AA as a whole, we find that we must, to some extent, organize to carry the message, or else face chaos, and chaos is not simplicity." When Tradition 9 speaks of AA as such, it goes to the heart of the AA experience, to the spiritual simplicity of one alcoholic's saying, perhaps silently, "Help," and another alcoholic's answering, "I know how you feel. We're here to help you." Such a relationship couldn't be organized, or could it? A non-member familiar with modern business procedures might examine the AA practice of sponsorship and see it as a haphazard organization. How about computerizing it? Then an AA behind an intergroup desk might say, "So you want help? First, you need the right sponsor. We have personality profiles of all our sponsors fed into our computer. We'll match you up to the best one for you if you'll just fill out this questionnaire. Where are you going? Come back." That would be an attempt to organize AA as such. Please, nobody get any ideas. But in action by groups, we find that we do need some degree of organization. If everybody thinks somebody else is going to make the coffee, what's the result? No coffee. To avoid such disaster, one or more members agree to be responsible for preparing meeting refreshments. All the way from the coffee brewers to the trustees on the General Service Board, those who take part in AA service work are assuming responsibility, not taking authority. Here, Traditions 2 and 9 interlock. Group officers are responsible to the members of the group. Intergroup committees to the groups in one locality. Institutions committees to AA groups in treatment facilities and correctional facilities. Area committees to all groups in their areas. Conference delegates and committees to all groups in the U.S. and Canada. The General Service Office and the Board and the board's committees to all groups and all members everywhere. In an average business corporation, the board has final power to determine company plans and policy. Our board of trustees serves in a custodial capacity. Trustees vote at the conference, but as individuals with one vote apiece. In industry, branch offices jump when the home office speaks. Our GSO is just a clearinghouse of AA information, offering suggestions based on experiences reported to it by the groups. And yet, with so small a degree of organization, AA miraculously does work. One reason may be that Tradition 5 applies to each AA committee and board as directly as it does to each AA group. By cleaving to this one primary purpose in all its activities, the fellowship retains spiritual simplicity. To diffuse that purpose, to embroil AA in issues apart from its true concern, would create dangerous complications. All right, now we'll go to the 12 and 12 book, and Tradition 9 is found on page 172. And first with her hand up is Deborah and her gorgeous tomatoes. Oops.
My hand up again. What do you know? I'm Deborah. I'm an alcoholic. When Tradition 9 was first written, it said that Alcoholics Anonymous needs at least the least possible organization. In years since then, we have changed our minds about that. Today, we are able to say with assurance that Alcoholics Anonymous, AA as a whole, should never be organized at all. Oh, God, I love this. Then, in seeming contradiction, we proceeded to create special service boards and committees, which in themselves are organized. How then can we have an unorganized movement which can and does create a service organization for itself? Scanning this puzzler, people say, what do they mean, no organization? Well, let's see. Did anyone ever hear of a nation, a church, a political party, even a benevolent association that had no membership rules? Did anyone ever hear of a society which couldn't somehow discipline its members and enforce obedience to necessary rules and regulations? Doesn't nearly every society on earth give authority to some of its members to impose obedience upon the rest and to punish or expel offenders? Therefore, every nation, in fact, every form of society, has to be a government administered by human beings. Power to direct or govern is the essence of organization everywhere.
Thank you, Deborah. Bonnie T.
Morning, everybody. Yet Alcoholics Anonymous is an exception. It does not conform to this pattern. Neither its General Service Conference, its Foundation Board, nor the humblest group committee can issue a single directive to an AA member and make it stick, let alone mete out any punishment. We've tried it lots of times, but other failure is always the result. Groups have tried to expel members, but the banished have come back to sit in the meeting place saying, this is life for us. You can't keep us out. Committees have instructed many in AA to stop working on a chronic backslider, only to be told, how I do my 12th step work is my business. Who are you to judge? This doesn't mean an AA won't take advice or suggestions from more experienced members, but surely won't take orders. Who is more unpopular than the old-time AA full of wisdom who moves to another area and tries to tell the group there how to run its business? He and all like him who view with alarm for the good of AA meet the most stubborn resistance or worse still, laughter. You might think AA's headquarters in New York would be an exception. Surely the people there would have to have some authority. But long ago, trustees and staff members alike found they could do no more than make suggestions, and very mild ones at that. They even had to coin a couple of sentences which still go into half the letters they write. Of course, you are at perfect liberty to handle this matter any way you please, but the majority experience in AA does seem to suggest ... Now that attitude is far removed from central government, isn't it? We recognize that alcoholics can't be dictated to individually or collectively. Pass.
Lisa G., are you there?
I am. Good
Perfect.
morning. At this juncture, we can hear a churchman exclaim, "They are making disobedience a virtue." He is joined by a psychiatrist who says, "Defiant rats. They won't grow up and conform to social usage." The man in the street says, "I don't understand it. They must be nuts." But all these observers have overlooked something unique in Alcoholics Anonymous. Unless each AA member follows to the best of his ability our suggested 12 steps to recovery, he almost certainly signs his own death warrant. His drunkenness and dissolution are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. They result from his personal disobedience to spiritual principles. Pass.
All right, anybody else want to jump in? Got no more hands up. Marianne, go ahead.
Marianne, alcoholic. The same stern threat applies to the group itself. Unless there is an approximate conformity to AA's 12 traditions, the group too can deteriorate and die. So we of AA do obey spiritual principles. First, because we must, and ultimately because we love the kind of life such obedience brings. Great suffering and great love are AA's disciplinaries. We need no others. It is clear now that we ought never to name boards to govern us, but it is equally clear that we shall always need to authorize workers to serve us. It is the difference between the spirit of vested authority and the spirit of service, two concepts which are sometimes poles apart. It is in the spirit of service that we elect the AA group's informal rotating committee, the Intergroups Association for the area, and the General Service Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous for AA as a whole. Even our foundation, once an independent board, is today directly accountable to our fellowship. Its trustees are the caretakers of expediters of our world service. Just as the aim of each AA member is personal sobriety, the aim of our service is to bring sobriety within the reach of all who want it. If nobody does the group's chores, if the area's telephone rings unanswered, if we do not reply to our mail, then AA, as we know it, would stop. Our communication lines to those who need our help would be broken. AA has to function, but at the same time, it must avoid those dangers of great wealth, prestige, and entrenched power, which necessarily tempt our society. Through Tradition 9, at first sight, seems to deal with a purely practical matter. It is, in its actual operation, it discloses a society without organization, aimed only by the spirit of service, a true fellowship.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I love a line in there, and we'll talk about it in one sec. But let's go to the checklist from the AA Grapevine, which has amazing discussion questions. I was introduced to these, as some of you know, at my original home group. They would read them at the business meeting, and I just loved it. And I wish I would have gotten into the traditions back then. Tradition 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Question 1. Do I still try to boss things in AA? 2. Do I resist formal aspects of AA because I fear them as authoritative? 3. Am I mature enough to understand and use all elements of the AA program, even if no one makes me do so, with a sense of personal responsibility. 4. Do I exercise patience and humility in any AA job I take? 5. Am I aware of all those to whom I am responsible in any AA job? 6. Why doesn't every AA group need a constitution and bylaws? 7. Have I learned to step out of an AA job gracefully and profit thereby when the time comes? 8. What has rotation to do with anonymity, with humility? Great questions. I personally love Tradition 9. I love being of service. I love being part of committees. For some of you that don't know some of the committees that there are, obviously there's the Remote Communities Committee, which is my personal fave at the moment. But there's treatment and accessibilities, there's the corrections, there's CPCPI, which is the cooperation with professionals, and that's where they speak in schools. There's tons and tons of things. The one big line that popped out of me when we were reading in the 12 and 12 is there on page 175, where it says, the aim of our services is to bring sobriety within reach of all who want it. That's the aim of these service boards and committees. That's the number one aim of all of them, is to bring sobriety within reach of all who want it. Now, I remember at my first service conference when they read the responsibility statement, like, it brings me to tears, and it still gets an emotional reaction out of it, because I'm responsible. When anyone reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to be there. And that's, for me, being involved in general service, that's number one for me, is I want to make sure that this is available to anyone who wants it. And so, I've helped out with treatment and accessibilities. I frequently speak at detox panels. If you know someone, or if you are looking to get involved in service, there's so many places to get involved. These panels and these committees, there's not enough people volunteering to be on them. For my personal committee, my remote community committee, I was the only member until I roped Andrea in when the pandemic started. And I announced my committee at every in-person meeting I went to, saying, I'm looking for support from my remote communities committee. No one ever approached me, ever, not once. And so, when we say you get a service position, people think at their home group. But there's so much more. And I'm telling you, AA comes alive when you get involved in general service. Like the connections you make, the sobriety you gain, and the fellowship that builds up around you is one of the best things I've ever experienced. But now when we talk about bossing, being bossy, or having humility, we are here just to offer our experience. So for me personally, I can speak of that with the Remote Communities Committee. I had a lot of experience with Zoom and with doing online meetings. And so when the pandemic happened and lots of people were transitioning to Zoom, I was approached by a lot of people. And it's where you get to be in the position of sharing your experience, but not being bossy. Well, you must do it this way. You must do it this way. It's a we. We did it this way. We found this worked. And using that verbiage is so much better than you need to do this. You need to do that. I need to do this. I need to do that. And it takes away the bossiness that I found, and just sharing information. There's committees everywhere, and we're able to share information back and forth, so we can use our experience to do just that, bring sobriety within reach to all who want it. Let's have a chat. Anybody? It's another one of the dud steps or traditions. It's not very thought-provoking. Marianne.
I am Marianne, alcoholic. Thanks, Kimberly. This is it really highlights the concept of self-help, because if we take our own responsibility and we follow the suggestions, then we're going to be there for other people who need to learn and see how this works. I'm not sure I was mature enough to understand all of that when I came into AA in the beginning. I don't think very many people have reached full maturity, because we stopped maturing at the point in time which we started abusing alcohol. So whatever age that was, we lost a few years along the way. But anyway, I was mature enough to grasp the fact that I needed to follow some suggestions, because I didn't have the answers that I needed. And, as long as I take that personal responsibility for showing up, for helping out with things that need to get done, sometimes a sponsor pokes you to take on a job like, lead a meeting for a change, or chair for a group for a while, or whatever. I do it to the extent that I can handle it without getting impatient, intolerant, or bossy. So when I find myself taking on a job and I start getting impatient with the group for not doing what I want, then I know it's time to let the job go and concentrate on myself instead of the group for a while. But anyway, mostly I see it as an issue with like in number 3, with the sense of personal responsibility, where we, find ourselves able to take that on. That's when, real peace and, progress happens for me in recovery. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that spirit of rotation, and it's sad because this is the end of the 2 years. So the rotation comes up, and it's like, it's hard to leave your position, because you grow to love it so much. But I've seen transitions that have got really murky, where the person leaving the tradition leaving the position, is trying to keep some sort of control over the position when the next person comes in, and trying to, mother over that person. And it can be difficult, but it's fun to just say, here's all my information, and know that someone else is going to love it just like you loved it, and bring their little flair to it, which is cool. Lisa G.
I've really got a situation here that I can relate to, even though you led it by saying, there's not really much fodder for discussion. I am a real alcoholic. My name's Lisa Gale, and I was voluntold into service years ago when I was taking my seat at meeting after meeting after meeting and not getting any better. And I was voluntold into my very first service position. I was told that I'm ready to make coffee. And I didn't know that people left fellowship meetings on rotation until that particular event in, when did that happen finally? 2005. After a period of sobriety, I was told that I was ready to do it, and I never saw the lady who was doing it prior again. And then a similar thing happened at Tuesday when I was leading the reading meeting as Richard's second, and we would trade, and he was up for election and was not voted in, and he and I both left that community on pretty much a hand gesture. And it was very difficult for me to go and take my seat with a straight face at that community again, just because of the spirit of rotation. People sometimes, like me, have had to be taken out with canes. And how, if you're old enough to know, there was a television show where it was a talent show, and the act had to be taken off with a cane. Unlike now, they just turn the music on or turn the lights off on a stage. Those of us who can remember that long ago before COVID. When I turned over my key to 220 in March during COVID, after failing at leading meetings via technology, it was the humblest act I've ever done in AA. It was really, really hard because I had been the key holder, the meeting leader of that book for a handful of years. Very difficult for me to let go of that key just due to a previous experience. So service saves my life every day, and I'm of service in a different way today, being in shared living, but it is still service. I'm in service in my family in a different way, more than just not drinking. I'm on the palliative care team. Service means a lot to me today. It saves my life every single day in and out of AA. Thank you, AA, for my recovery, my sobriety, my inclusion in meetings. They asked me to share this morning at the 10. Here, I hope I'm appreciated and my story is related to. But AA, man, it's a miracle. It's a university. It's a hospital. It is so many things more than just not drinking. But I see that today in your 17, and I love you all.
Thank you so much, Lise. I love you too. Absolutely valuable member of our community. And yeah, it's fun when you put your name in the hat. I remember when I ran for like student council in high school, and that's a popularity contest. And then, in the corporate world, if you're trying for a position and you don't get it, you get your knickers in a knot. But in AA, it's just, I give it to God. And I said, you know what? I just want to be of service and put my name in the hat and hope for the best. And I'm just flattered and honored every time I get selected, or even if I don't, it's a learning experience, right? And it's fun. I love service. Anybody else? Deborah.
When I was new in the program, my sponsors really encouraged me to get into service right away, and that has kept me. And I'm always been in service while I've been in recovery, and it keeps me there, keeps me going when I don't want to go. And there's highs and lows in service. There's certainly a lot of energy put into people getting positions and doing things. I've certainly experienced a lot of that where no one has volunteered to be secretary, and I have a hard time with the dead space sometimes, although I like dead space. It gives people the opportunity that don't like to share, and I volunteered, and then I hear this, oh God, she's been secretary I don't know how many times. Well, you can put your hand up. I'm not the only person that can volunteer in this meeting, but I really truly believe in the rotation of service. It's so important in a group. When someone holds on to something, then the newcomers never get the opportunity, and that is so important to feel part of. And I also have a lot of energy on this spot of, well, they don't have enough time to do that. Well, you know what? Who cares how much time you have? You need to get in there and do it. Unless it's got the treasury and there's a lot of money, then we shouldn't be carrying a lot of money. That money should be dispersed. I have a lot of opinions on this. I'm glad we have traditions to read, but I'm all about the rotation of service, and I do butt heads occasionally, and occasionally I just have to step down because I got to watch my motives and let people work out their own issues in business meetings, because I don't have to fix that either. So anyway, I love this group. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much. And I love that you speak of motives, because it's like, I have heard some pretty fur-flying business meetings. And it's like, okay, well, first off, does this sound attractive to the newcomer to our meeting? Probably not. And then it's like, are we just here to be helpful? Like, does this really need this much time and energy? Because a lot of the times it's like, okie dokie, let's move on and just let that one simmer. Anybody else? Joan, I always love your points of view. Would you like to share with us? Are you frozen? I think Joan's frozen. Dottie, since you're next door to Joan, I'm going to call on you.
Hi, everybody. Dottie, alcoholic. When I was in rehab, it was instilled, right? get a sponsor, get a home group, and do service. And, and I jumped into the program of AA feet first, and I haven't looked back. And I did not do what was suggested in order, and I don't recommend anybody to do that, but that was the path I was put on. So I was doing major service before I was even doing steps. And that was just because it wasn't, I couldn't get a sponsor. My schedule and my sponsors' schedules at the time just didn't work. But I go to jails. I can't now since COVID has hit. I was never in jail, thank God, but I take service work to the jails, and it's such a rewarding experience, and just service in general. And I carry different positions in different groups. In New Jersey, we're divided by areas, little different areas, and I go to meetings in different areas, so I hold different positions in different meetings. And I am a firm believer of the spirit of rotation. And in my main home group, unfortunately, when it comes to the beginners meetings, it seems like my rotation doesn't seem to rotate out enough. As much as I love doing beginners meetings, because it reminds me of where I was and where I can end up if I don't continue to do service and work this program the way it's been written by Bill, Bob, and the other 98 original alcoholics. And and some business meetings, they can be quite terrifying per se to a newcomer. I know my home group was, my main home group has a lot of old sobriety, and they're stuck in their ways. And, it was enough to scare me, and it takes a lot to scare me, but I was like, I wasn't going back, because they were not willing to listen to, and then a couple months in, and they finally asked, like, why can't we keep new people at our business meeting? And, I was afraid to speak up, but I did. And, and believe it or not, a percentage of them listened, and they were willing to accept change. And sometimes, you have to listen, and, you can't always, we did it this way for the last 38 years. Okay, well, maybe it's time to change if you want to keep the young people in your home group. But service in general, for me, it's just, I do what's needed to be done, and it's to help another alcoholic. It's not to help myself as much so, which it does keep me sober. But, if I can't help another alcoholic, I'm not doing something right, and it's just, I'm forever grateful for this pandemic. It had not been, I wouldn't have met such great women such as Kim. And I wouldn't be able to have shared with other great women that are here from my other home group on Tuesday nights. And, it's just service is very important to me. And I will always be of service as long as I'm physically and mentally able to be of service to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll just keep coming. And thank you, ladies, for being here and helping me stay sober today. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Dottie. Oh, you made me remember something. So we wanted to bring in the tap, the square, at our meetings for Seventh Traditions, and all the old timers were like, no, we can't do that. Now nobody wants money anymore, and they're like, yeah, remember you brought up that thing about the tap for Seventh? The pandemic forced it, because now nobody's got money. Anne in New Jersey, would you like to share?
Hi, I'm Ann. I'm an alcoholic. And early in my sobriety, I was told that the steps are with us to save the alcoholic from getting drunk, and the traditions are with us to save the fellowship from the alcoholics. And I really believe that. I've gone to step meetings that have a tradition thing once a month, and I've never been so much impressed as doing them in a bunch like this. How much every one of them is about preserving our singleness of purpose, to help ourselves and another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. And this one in particular, I'm such a fan of service. I think I was 2.5 months sober, and my sponsor volunteered me to be a greeting at a meeting, which I didn't want to do because I just wanted to be totally anonymous and nobody to talk to me. But it made me realize that doing service, any kind of service in the group, gives you a place, an ownership of your recovery and the welfare of that group, so that you got to show up because you're supposed to be there to do this service that the group requires. And so, whenever I have a sponsee, that's one of my first things that I encourage is to do some kind of service. I got sober in New York City, where every 3 months there was a rotation and people lobbied for the jobs. Everybody competed for them. They got supporters to vote for them and that kind of thing. Here in New Jersey, when you have an open job, you're met with blank stares, like nobody speaks your language, or at least in some of the groups that I belong to. And so, it's a missed opportunity if you don't volunteer for service. And I think the rotation thing is so wise. I've had the experience myself of being in a job too long, and feeling an ownership for it, and it had to be done right, and it had to be done this way, and realizing at some point that I wasn't doing myself any favors for my sobriety. It was time to pass it on and not criticize the person who came after. Anyway, great topic. Thank you, Kimberly, for hosting these meetings, and everybody who shares it. There's so much wisdom when you get together like this. I love Zoom. Thanks for letting me mouth off.
Thanks so much, Anne. Good wisdom. Great wisdom. MJ.
Hi, everyone. I'm MJ. I'm an alcoholic. Now, what brought to mind was I remember when one thing, my very first sponsor got me involved with service right away. And I was too afraid to say no. So I went ahead and did it. But I remember that too, learning about the rotation every 2 years or whatever, like for when I was GSR. I couldn't understand after, it took me 2 years to learn the job. And then all of a sudden go away, and somebody else has to take over. And that just didn't make any sense to me because I figured I needed a couple more years to really learn what was going on. But now I understand that. I think also the spirit of rotation has something to do with not getting power, like not helping people not get into a position where they think they have power or authority over other people. I think that might be, that part of why the rotation is like that. I'm not sure if it says that in our literature or not, but it's humbling to be told, okay, you've done your job for 2 years and now you have to leave. I found it humbling anyways. Now I don't care. Now it's fine. I know I'm in it for the 2 years and I'm going to pass the reins to somebody else when I'm done. So thank you.
Thank you. And it also speaks both in the questions, and I speak on it for experiences. It helps with your anonymity. If you're in a position for far too long, like I'm Kim the Zoom girl. So like, oh yeah, Kim, remote communities, Kim. So, it affects my anonymity I don't really have anonymity, but if someone was in a position for far too long, it becomes a bit of their persona, so to say. All right, Lisa G.
What an honor it was when I met my new roommate's dad to be able to say, after we did the, I'm Big Book Lise. And he looked at me like in North Van, I'm known as Big Book Lise. and I'm living with somebody who also has that tag. But all of us in Alcoholics Anonymous have the same last name, so-and-so alcoholic or alcoholic so-and-so. And so I heard that in Zoom. Where else are you going to hear stuff like that unless you go to fellowship meetings? And they're very far and few between right now. But for me, what I've learned in this community and service is that the identification before the meetings, after the meetings, the car chats, the parking lot chats, the coffee shop, soup and sandwich, dinners after meetings, like that is service too. Like so many people who are alone with their drinking in boardrooms or alone with their drinking on airplanes or alone with their drinking in bathrooms don't know that there's a whole world out there. And unless there's somebody who's been down the road a little bit further than you, me in this case, who has seen that this is where I'm at in the process of identifying to get in the kitchen and do those dishes at 1044 really helped me. I never could quite wrap my head around doing it at 29th Marine Drive because I was so busy in the book and the literature and being literature rep and greeter and all that kind of stuff there. But that's why I had 2 home groups all the time when face-to-faces were happening, because I had different resonances with the different demographics of the people that went to that particular meeting. And P.S., if I got pissed off at one community, I always had the other one to go sit down and tell them about it, you know? So for me, I always had to be in service at different places, always 2 groups, always I've had 2 sponsors at least, always I've had 2 of this. But that's just my backup. I know myself. I know my step 4 pretty intimately. And unless I go to my step 11 and work the traditions, I'm a hooped alcoholic. So I've got to remember the steps as much as I remember the traditions and use them both to stay sober. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And I do believe that this group would gain a lot if we were to go into the concepts, but we'll have to do a group conscience on that. But I am learning a tremendous amount in this series, and I look forward to the next and the next and the next year, all very vital to my recovery. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lise. Joan, I tried to call on you earlier, but you were frozen with a funny face. Whoops. One more time. There you go.
I always have a funny face.
No.
You know, having been in the fellowship for a few 24 hours now, I'm not sure there's any local job I haven't had at one time or the other, up to and including washing nasty ashtrays. Now, you gotta want to be sober to wash nasty ashtrays. But when I was about 6 months sober, I was asked to be part of the group, the committee that took AA meetings to the jail. And my sponsor got me into that. And I thought, oh my God, now what have I got to offer these ladies? I have nothing to offer them. I've never been in jail. I've never even visited jail. What have I got to offer? And then it came to me while I was at that first meeting, I'm an alcoholic and so are they. That's why they're there. And that's the only thing I had to have in common with them. So for me, that, and I've been doing that well until COVID-19 hit. I've been doing it for 18 years now. And it's one of the greatest services I've had. But the one thing I was going to a prison before they closed it, and I would try to get a speaker at least once a month. And I'm going to tell you, it was hard getting women to come and talk at a prison. I just do not mind telling you that. I never could quite figure it out. I mean, I'd get somebody every time, but usually it was by twisting arms and threatening death and destruction to them or something. But, you know, it took a lot to get people to go and do that service work. So there's some service work out there that I'm going to tell you, if you ever start doing it, it becomes part of you and it becomes like a calling. And that for me has been one of them. But one little thing about service that I want to say is, to me, coming to a meeting and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with people. I mean, don't just make up something, but, you know, you've got a topic where you have some real experience, strength, and hope that can help, especially newcomers. And to sit there on your hiney and never open your mouth gets on my last personal nerve. And I've actually started mentioning it to people. I don't know how to do it. And when I first started going on Zoom meetings when COVID started, it wasn't like that. People would just share. I don't know if it was because, oh my God, I get to talk to somebody or whatever. But now it has gotten to where at meetings, I mean, I'm talking about my local meetings here, that people will sit there and be silent, just kind of waiting on somebody to call on them. And I don't know why that gets on my nerves, but I don't know how to solve that problem. So, you know, but I didn't know if any of y'all were experiencing the same thing at meetings.
It drives me nuts. The
Thank
one that drives me
you.
the most. I'm just here to claim my seat. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? I'm here to get freaking sober, not claim a gosh darn chair. If I want to claim a chair, I'm going to go to IKEA and pick it up and pay for it. Drives me up the wall. But they do it. They did it in real life here before. And you know how when I speak or when I'm asked to share, I talk about it. I'm like, you know what? Everybody's got a voice here. And the number one thing, if you want to be of service to Alcoholics Anonymous and be part of, you share your experience, strength, and hope. If all your hope is that it's day 2 in detox and that you got your slippers on the right feet, then you need to share that, because there might be someone that still doesn't have their shoes on yet. And that's what we're going to share on. And you know what? Here, if they go, oh, yeah, Betty in the back, would you like to share? Oh, no, I'm just listening. And then they'll be like, oh, you know, Mary Sue over there, would you like to share? Oh, no, I'm just listening. You know who's next every freaking time? Every time. No matter what meeting I'm at. If 2 people in a row say they're just listening, I might as well just get up and start sharing, because I know I'm next. And the first thing that comes out of my mouth is how much that drives me nuts and that they should share. Like, you're here to get a voice. And if I'm a speaker in the first 20 minutes, I usually talk about that in real life meetings, and then no one would say no the rest of the meeting. So if you want to fix something in AA, talk about it. But yeah, I'm just here to claim my seat. I'm like, geez, Louise, please stop saying that.
I've never heard that one.
Oh, it happens on the Zoom all day. And I'm like, I don't know who started that. I don't know who's perpetuating it. But, you know, somebody needs to say, oh, you got to share something. Just talk about where you're at. Because number one, that's how we get to know what you need, right? Our big book says, talk to your prospect and see what everything you can about them, right? So if I hear someone sharing that this, and this is going on, I'm like, I know a girl. I got a girl that can work with you. Let's connect you. Or, hey, I've had that. Let me help you. We can't help you if we don't know what you're going through. If you're just here claiming your seat, what you doing? I'm here to get sober. If I want a chair, I'm going to go to IKEA and buy a chair. But yeah, it drives me up the wall. Up the wall. And then you got the ones, does anyone have a burning desire? Oh gosh, here comes the 5th step. You're going to hear all about their problems. I've been at a meeting though. See me, I went to a meeting on a Tuesday night, and it was someone's sobriety anniversary. I did not hear. This woman was taking a 7-year cake. Up here in Canada, we call them cakes. I did not hear one person talk about the big book. I did not hear one person mention the steps. Not one person mentioned God in an entire hour. And I'm telling you, I had a burning desire to share. I was like wiggling in my chair. I'm like, how can you go an entire hour in AA, not talk about the big book, the steps, and God? Oh man, did I have a burning desire. And I was like, if they ask, I'm putting my hand up. And they didn't ask, of course. Anywho, I saw that was my rant for the day. I love you, Joan. I love you. Bonnie T.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Bonnie. I'm an alcoholic. I love you women. You know what? I feel like I'm running to catch up to you because I hear, honest to goodness, I hear so much wisdom coming out of your mouths. And so much just joy of the program and all of the things I want in my life I hear from you women. And I'll tell you, I still have a huge shy streak. And it really, I really do find it holds me back from, particularly when whatever it is involves technology. Like I really would love to try hosting at 164, but I'm scared to death. I'm going to volunteer this time. I am going to volunteer this time, and you guys are just going to have to forgive me. But anyways, that's basically what I wanted to say. You guys are such examples of how this program works. And like, I just absorb it. I absorb it like a sponge every time I listen to you. And it just really helps me learn and progress in this program. I just wanted to thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. And you got to remember, we're alcoholics. We're all thinking about ourselves. So
yeah,
I always, like, when people are like, oh, you got to speak. And I'm like, oh, like, sometimes I get nervous. It's like, nah, just remember they're always thinking about themselves. And no matter what, somebody's going to come along behind you and screw up. And they're going to remember that more than what you just did. Oh, yeah.
Good point. Thank you.
It's a good thing about our audience, right? Oh, Marianne. There you go.
I'm Marianne, alcoholic. I don't know if this is a question. It's a statement with a question behind it. You know, talking about the spirit of rotation, the home group that I belong to, instead of having, you know, everyone, you know, will raise their hand and they'll pick somebody for, you know, to lead the meeting or to be this or to do that. They send around a list that goes to one specific table and then goes all the way around. So by the time it gets to you or me, you know, it's just, I don't think that's the proper way to do it for rotation. I think that it's always put at the table where, you know, people who always chair, you know, get it first. I just wanted your opinion.
Do you guys have a business meeting?
Yes.
Bring it up at the business meeting. Start at a different table. Because that's not rotating. That's like high school, playing favorites, starts with the popular kids and works its way down, and you're the last one getting picked for tug of war.
But should it be a list, though?
Well, in my opinion, you can have a list, but you say who would like to do this job today and see what hands get picked up. I don't think it's fair to start at the same table and pass it around the table so that there's no rotation there. Not at all. Or start at a different table next time, or start at a different, you know, well, that's just like, you know, the people that show up half an hour before, they get all the good stuff, and then the people that can only get there 5 minutes before because, say, their childcare is always late or they're coming from work, they don't get any positions because that's unfair. In my opinion, I'm really all about rotation and that kind of stuff. That's playing favorites. Let's go to the people that do it the most first. And that's where we're having a business meeting. Voice the minority here in AA has, because I bet you're not the only one thinking that. And once one person speaks up in AA, other people are like, yeah, Always. Always. They're just some people just still have fear and they don't have the voice yet. Once you start speaking up, you see that you're the voice for the minority. You get a little bit of power behind your voice. That's my opinion and my experience.
Well, that's a good suggestion. And when I start going back to that group, when I feel more comfortable,
Yeah,
and at the next business meeting, I shall bring that up. Thank you.
absolutely. Because typically there's about 5 other people that are probably feeling the same thing if one person is, and they just don't feel they have a voice. Dottie!
I was just going to respond to Marianne. My Saturday, my main home group does the same thing, and it gets brought up all the time in the business meeting. You have to start passing it around sooner because it doesn't make it around. Like, we're in a large group that splits into 3 meetings after the main meeting starts. And, after a while, it's the same person leading, it's the same people, because it doesn't make it around. And, so you have to bring it up because, once we started bringing it up, it got started, it either started sooner or it got started in a different part of the room, because there's a lot of newcomers who need to do service just as greeters or making the coffee or whatever it is. So, yeah, and don't be afraid to raise your hand and speak up, because if you stay back and be timid, they're going to continue to do the same thing. Or make a recommendation that they, in the beginning of the meeting, who would like to do whatever for this month, and just call it out. That's how we do it at our Tuesday night meeting, and it seems to work well. So it's just a suggestion.
And if you really want to spark change, get some friends and some sponsees and some stepsisters and just all come to the meeting and have them join, and then you have more votes. Just
Sound
saying.
like the politics in this country. Stop it.
Diane F., would you like to share?
Hi. Thank you very much. Yes, I really believe I've always had sort of a lot to say whether people like it or not. I'm like, my hand's always up. I'm a shy extrovert. So, but I like all alcoholics. I always like, am I well received? Was it well received? And I think knowing that, I think it's really important to make other people feel welcome regardless of what they say. Because shy people are shy and it's hard for them to speak up. What seems easy for someone who speaks without that's why I remember I listened to you, Kimberly, once, and you said after a meeting, it really stuck with me, that you went up to the person that nobody was talking to, and it turned out he was like some scientist of some sort. And I was like, yeah, because it's the people that don't talk. I want everyone to feel welcome. I think the world is hard enough, and I'm so grateful we don't, in today's day and age, talk about politics, because I probably hate half the group. I was like, so it's really important that we stick to making people feel welcome. Super important, in my opinion. And because I started drinking at 13 because I felt unwell. I felt like I am now, fairly talkative and stuff, but I always felt like I was performing. How did my performance go? Did they like me? Was I good? Oh, if I drink, I'm much more entertaining. And it's all about, so when I see someone who seems shy or doesn't feel like talking, I know they've got a lot to say. You can't be alive and breathing for however many years, 20, 30, 40, so forth, without having stuff happen to you, opinions, fears. And this morning's meeting, was a lot of talk about fear, and that got me excited because I'm like, I know that one. So I guess what I'm saying is meetings should be comfortable for everyone. And if anyone feels uncomfortable, I think they need to talk about it. Say, hey, this is making me feel uncomfortable without anyone getting mad or feeling offended. And it should never be like try to avoid click type things. Because you want people to go home feeling empowered that yes, they can. And I very seldom do any group work. What do you call that? Sarah, the name of it. I don't do service position stuff. Other than I gave people rides sometimes, which forced me to be on time, which was good for me. But I would, 164 is a group I really cherish, and I probably willing to do something, that's pretty half. It really is a full statement, not a half statement. And so I really appreciate the group, and I'm not getting better, even though I've been in it sober 4 years. So I realize I'm not doing it right. And my sponsor is like we're, distant sponsor. In other words, we don't talk. Sponsor in almost a name only. And I blame myself probably. But yes, I don't think I'm a dry drunk, but I'm not a sober person. I'm somewhere floating in the middle. So I think open, honest communication and making the person that's just claiming their seat claim their mouth too is a fantastic idea, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember being the one that nobody talked to. And I remember being the one that was picked last on the fucking sports teams every time. And so, you know, everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a voice. You know, I had braces, short hair, and my mom got me a Tony perm when I was in middle school. So let me tell you, I was the odd duck out. Thank goodness I grew out of that. Oh, anybody remember those Tony perms? Oh, geez Louise. In the kitchen, sitting on the stool with the steps that go up and down. Oh, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I always, and you know, there's neat people in Alcoholics Anonymous. You will meet the neatest people in this fellowship. And you know, that gentleman, yeah, he was like an amazing scientist, and was super eccentric and had run on some bad luck and was obviously suffering from mental illness, but still has a voice. All right, ladies, we will stop the tape and we will say our serenity.